Alright, so now we're ready to tackle worksheet 1.3.b. We have three different tasks associated on the bottom. Task 1, which is employee summary sheet of hours worked. Task 2, which is dealing with cars and vehicles based on their fuel efficiency and how old they are. And task 3 is the qualifications to receive credit for an earth science course within New York State. We're going to be looking at task 1 in this video. This video is going to focus on the employees that we have on a list and then the number of hours they've worked this week. What we're going to have to solve is a yes or no answer to see if they are a part-time employee, which means that they've worked less than 32 hours. And we also are going to be doing an analysis to look to see if they've worked overtime, which means that they've worked more than 40 hours this week. If you work part-time, you basically just get paid for the number of hours that you've worked at your standard rate. But if you work overtime, you are owed 1.5 times your pay for each hour worked past 40 hours. So we want to figure out from an analysis position of how many employees we have part-time working this week and how many employees we have working overtime. We're going to solve the part-time problems, and I'm going to leave you to figure out the overtime problems. So in this first cell, we're going to use one of our four logical expressions, either if, and, or not. So if we need to figure out if this person, Mehdi Kumar, worked part-time, we need to figure out if the number of hours worked this week, basically the value inside of cell B3, is less than 32 hours. So to start this, I'm going to double-click into this cell, and then I'm going to press equal sign, because that's how we start our functions, and I'm going to put in the word if. Now what if allows us to do is to check for a certain condition or a certain type of scenario. I'm going to start my parentheses, and then I need to identify the logical expression. Basically, what do I want to check for? Well, we're going to look at this cell, B3, and I can just click on it. All right. And I can say if B3 is less than 32, comma, then I can put in whatever I want to be the result. I'm going to put in the word yes. I can close my parentheses and press enter. And it looks like Mehdi Kumar did indeed work less than 32 hours. Now, of course, we can analyze that by just looking at it, but if I drag this formula down from this little blue box in the bottom right corner, I can extend that logic to as many employees as I want. And we get yes, then we get false. Well, that makes sense because 42 is not less than 32. We get yes for 10 hours, yes for 8 hours, false, false, false. Now, I'm not a huge fan of all of these falses. They just don't look visually appealing. The yeses look much better. So I'm going to double click into here again to edit my formula or my function. And I'm going to put another comma after the word yes. I can also put in a response or a value to place in the cell for when this requirement or this expression doesn't happen. So I can put in no. And when I press enter, I still have the yes on here. But then when I drag it down, I get yeses and nos. And it looks just a little bit nicer from a design perspective. So that's how we're going to be able to figure out each of the employees working as part-time. Now, how could we get this count or this running count of number of part-time employees? Well, that's a part-time employee, that's a part-time employee, that's a part-time employee. None of these are part-time employees. That's a part-time employee. So if I refer back to our original functions from 1.3.a, we can do a count if. So equals count if parentheses, and then we have to choose our range. Remember, that's the boxes that we want to use for this counting. I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to drag all the way down. And then I'm going to scroll back up to the top, back to where the cell is, and then I can put in comma, and then I put in whatever the criterion or whatever rule I want it to be. I can put in yes. I can close the parentheses, and I can press enter. And this tells me that 11 of these employees worked part-time, which seems about right when we have 28, and a good chunk of these are yeses, but the majority are no's. All right? An additional way that we could do this is I could double-click into here, and I could actually get rid of that range because we have an additional range that we can analyze if we would like. I can click here, and I can drag all the way down to the bottom, because now we're analyzing this range, and then we can put in comma our rule, less than 32, and my quotes and my parentheses, and press enter, and we still get that 11. This is an excellent example of how there is never one single solution to fix things. There are oftentimes multiple solutions and multiple ways to address these. You don't have to know the perfect answer every time, but what you should be able to do is figure it out through some basic problem solving and critical thinking. You always want to take your time with this, and you always want to try to just consider thinking outside the box. It's a great opportunity to kind of exercise your brain and try to be really, really good at problem solving. And as I've said throughout other videos, these skills are what really matter in today's economy.